Hello Wargamers, it's me Callum from TableTopBanter, and in today's video I'm going to talk to you about a little bit of Tactica, in particular blocking units. Okay, so in today's video I am indeed going to talk about blocking units. So what does that mean? Well, when we play a game of 40k and you put down your army, you're going to have some units that are going to be super killy. Your opponent is going to have some of these things, and part of the game is trying to minimize what their units can do and maximize what your units can do. I mean, that kind of sounds obvious, but that's sort of how it is. So one way to minimize the amount of output, damage output in particular, their super killer unit can do is with a blocking unit. So there are numerous ways you could define a blocking unit. To me, it's something that slows down their advance. Now, this can be done in numerous different ways. It doesn't have to be throwing them into combat or having them as a nice line in front of your opponent. In my opinion, there are multiple ways you can do this, and what we're going to talk about today is how we can attract our opponent's attention and potentially block them that way, and also the obvious, getting them bogged down. So, attracting their attention. To me, this means you need to put a unit that has some kind of damage output capability, or an annoyance factor. So for me, this would be something that has outflank, something that can deep strike. Either of those things are kind of ideal for this because they can arrive on their side of the table, really slow down their advance. For me, a couple of drop pods with smaller units in doesn't even have to be like a really potent unit. I would be tempted by just drop pod marines, or like a drop pod assault squad or something, just something small that can be annoying. Even better if you can get bikes with outflank or something, like with Ravenwing Black Knights. They are perfect because 120 points or so gets you outflanking rapid fire plasma twin linked, which is sort of ideal in my opinion as a distraction unit because you have to deal with it. It's something that needs to be dealt with, but if it dies, it's 120 points, not 250. So to me, that's like an ideal unit. They're also durable because of toughness 5 and a 3-up rerollable jinx save. So you want maybe that durable, something with a little bit of punch, but it's quite cheap still. Now I know that that's kind of asking a lot of a single unit. There are going to be units in almost every codex that can do the job of distraction. Most of them in different ways. Like I said, bikes coming in from the side and being a more of an offensive nuisance, something that can wipe out a unit, for example, needs to be dealt with. But then there's also super cheap, easy to kill, but you've got 100 of them and they're fearless. That is also a distraction unit. It doesn't have that mobility or that punch necessarily, but it can do the job of slowing down your opponent for as fewer points as possible. So, like I said, from the Space Marine Dark Angels Codex, you've got the Ravenwing, and from the regular Space Marine Codex, I would say anything that comes down in a drop pod or deep strikes, because it can really draw the attention of an opponent away from the core of your army. When we talk about other potential ones, things with infiltrate, they're really good as well because you can put them anywhere on the board within 12 inches of an enemy if it's out of line of sight, and then they have to deal with it because it's there. So these kind of units, and really fast units. So jet bikes, just 3 standard Eldar jet bikes, no upgrades. You just ping them over to their side of the board first turn. Because that's something over there, they've got a target that means that your core army is not bothered. Maybe even second turn, just so that they've already started moving towards you and they start after making decisions. The basic principle, the way a blocking unit works, has more than one way as well. There's psychological blocking and then there's physical blocking. So what I'm talking about with these Ravenwing and with the fast, the drop pods, the get on your opponent's side of the table is the psychological side. So you're not actually like lining them up in front of your opponent, but instead you're making them make decisions. And the more decisions your opponent has to make, the more likely they are to make a mistake. That rhymes, and I've only just noticed. So that is absolutely awesome. That's now going to be a slogan, I'm sure, all over the internet. So the second kind is the physical blocking unit. So this is a unit you put down in front of your opponent and it just gets in the way. It does nothing else but gets in the way. What springs to mind is 30 Fearless Cultists, and multiple units of these. If you take them in the Hell Cult formation, so that's where you'd have a Hellbrute, and then 3 units or 2 units of cultists. If you max those squads out, and it might even be just 20, but if you max all the squads out for that, they all have the Fearless special rule. So you just walk them up to a Wraith Knight and have fun dealing with that. Potentially 40 cultists. You know, who cares? They got 6 up armor save. They're a handful of points each. Yes, they can't hurt the Wraith Knight, but they're not there to hurt the Wraith Knight. Well, they are hurting the Wraith Knight, but indirectly. They're hurting it in the fact that it now has to kill cultists for the rest of the game, instead of killing a Land Raider, killing the contents of the Land Raider, taking out your HQ choice, taking out the heavy support choices, you know, stomping on a fast attack. Instead, they have to deal with mass infantry blobs that you can't chew through that quickly. And effectively, with multiple of these units, he has to split attacks. So you can just swarm this thing and it'll be end of the game for that Wraith Knight. Even with Stomp, potentially. So there's that kind of physical blocking element. Why would I take psychological over physical or physical over psychological? I don't know if I would have a preference. I think my preference is the psychological because you can use those in other elements of the game. For example, if I turn up to the game and my opponent doesn't have a Death Star, doesn't have this super killer unit that I want to distract, turning up with 40 cultists, it's almost less effective than turning up with a couple of these distraction units, these sort of more psychological based ones, like the Black Knights, for example, because in a standard game they still have a role, you know, 6 twin-linked, strength 7 AP 2 shots every turn. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So I personally believe that taking the psychological distraction is potentially more effective. However, with the physical one, if there is a unit, excuse me, if there is a unit you want to target, then it's going to do that job 100% of the time. Whereas if you're playing against someone more experienced, they might know that, hey, this bike squad is nothing, it's just there to distract me. So that's really it for today's video. I hope it's kind of helped open up some 40k horizons. The more I look into sort of fantasy-esque games, in particular 9th Age, the more I see these kind of blocking units being a thing, and I know they are in 40k, but that really opened my mind up. So I hope it's opened your mind up as well. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video today. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave your comments below. What's your favourite blocking unit or distraction unit, and how do you use it, and how do you counter it? That's another good one to ask. I should probably make some countering videos on later down the line once I've talked about my tactics, but you know, that's a little way away yet. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Of course, 2 links in the description below. The first is to the TableTopBanter blog, and the second to the Legion of Gamza Facebook page. Lots of great content from lots of great people. Really is a privilege to be a part of that team. So thank you ever so much for watching. It's been me, Callum from TabletopBanter. Don't forget, have fun.